Thanks, Cindy. Hi, everybody. Glad you could join us today. For those of you who were on our session last month about monitoring compliance, thank you. I know you probably heard me say this last time, but I'm going to say it again in case you weren't on that session. We are gearing up already for our next in-person PFA, PFAE Administrator Conference. It will be in April 13th and 14th at the same hotel as last year, the I Hotel in Champaign. The Prevention Initiative conference is going to follow immediately that start that evening, April 14th, and then their conference will be on the 15th in the same location, same hotel this time. So for those of you who have both grants, it will be back to back. The registration has not gone live yet, so be on the lookout for an email about that, but just put that on your date on your calendar. Again, April 13th and 14th for PFA, April 14th and 15th for PI in Champaign. So our topic today is one that we get a lot of questions about, serving English learners in preschool programs. We are lucky to be joined by Tammy King from the Early Childhood Professional Learning and Randy Susik, who is a principal consultant in our multilingual department here at ISB. And we are going to talk a lot about that FAQ document that many of you have seen or we send to you when you ask questions about serving English learners. So Tammy, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. So we're actually going to start the day off or the afternoon off with a little poll. So let me click my next slide here. And so in just a moment, you'll see it. Hopefully it's already popped up on your screen. We would like you to please choose your answer. Whichever one best matches the role that you have in your program. If you don't like any of the choices that we gave you, you are welcome to click the one that says a different role, but then please tell us in the chat box how you would describe the role that you have in your program, or roles, if that is the case. So we've got at least family support and parent coordinators I'm seeing pop up. Thank you, Tanya and Kirsten, sorry. PFA instructional coach as well, in addition to everything that you see on the screen right now. We also got an early childhood coordinator without PFA and some more family support folks. Pre-K coordinator, but not technically an administrator. ECSE professional development, pre-K coordinator as well. Awesome. Yeah, keep it coming in the chat box if you don't like the roles that we gave you here. In terms of the choices on the poll itself, it looks like the most common position is PFA and PFAE program administrator, with 63% of the votes, or 57 people, indicating that that is the best description for their role. And then the next most popular one is the different role, which we have popping up in the chat box. If you do see me looking off to the screen a little bit to my side here, that's because I have dual screens today and my chat box is over on this side. But we do have a few ESL bilingual program administrators, preschool teachers, and ESL bilingual teachers on as well. Awesome. Thank you for that. That helps us as we move through the session today. So to that end, we wanted to let you know that when we created this presentation, it was with the intention of primarily speaking to, hold on just a moment, I need to get rid of this box here. Our intended audience for this session is early childhood directors, program coordinators, and such. But as you may have seen in the description, we encouraged you to invite your ESL bilingual program directors, Title III directors, have them come with you so that they can hear some of this same information. But again, we did intend this with a primary audience of early childhood directors. We have a few tools that we wanted to share with you today too, and you will find these, there we go, in the handouts folder. So in the confirmation email that you received from our office earlier today, and then you would have also received one when you first registered, there was a link for today's Zoom. That would have been in big bold print. It said Zoom, you clicked on it. That's how you're here with us right now. If you go back to that same email, right below where it says Zoom, it should say in all caps, handout. You click that and it will take you to a folder with a whole bunch of different handouts in it. And one of them is this document you're looking at right now, which is the newly updated 2025 frequently asked questions document from the State Board of Education. And it will look like, the cover sheet will look like the document you see right now. And it's around, what was it, about 20 pages or so. So that's something that we're going to be referencing extensively during today's sessions. In fact, as we go through and Randy talks about some of the different ones, and Jenny, there'll be numbers up on the screen, and they're referencing the numbers of the questions in this frequently asked questions document. Also, the other tools that we have for you today are these two action plan forms. These are for you to use if you like to take notes. There are two different options for you. One, we're calling the print and write document, just a place for you to take some notes as we go through. We literally named it print and write. So you can click on it, print it, and then write on it. If you don't like to do it that way, then you can click on the type and save one, which has been designed for exactly that, where you can type on it and then save it, and then you got it that way. If you don't like doing either one of those things, that's totally cool. We just wanted to give you what we have, give you some options to record your notes, both short-term and long-term action items in some sort of a format that was ready to go for you today. So you have those. Again, that's under that handout button in that confirmation email. Let's see, just a couple more slides before I hand it over. As we go through today on these slides, when you see a big light bulb icon in the corner of your screen, please make special note of that, because that indicates a difference between early childhood policies and kindergarten to 12th grade policies. Why is this important? Even if you're only in a preschool program, well, when you're interfacing with folks in the local school district, they're going to be operating under the assumptions of the K-12 world. So it's good for you to know kind of where they're coming from and where some of these differences occur in policies at the state level. So again, keep a lookout for those big yellow light bulbs. Sorry, it seems like there's a little lag on my end. There we go. And then one last tool that we have in that handout for you, or in the handouts folder for you, is the research highlights. This is a document. It was updated a couple of years ago by WIDA in 2023, and it's WIDA's guiding principles of early language development. So you'll see here on the screen, like for example, number 1, it says multilingual children are learning more than one language at the same time, and they adjust the use of their languages to different sociocultural contexts. Tons of research. This is, we've known this for a long time in our field, at least a couple of decades, if not longer. But you see how it has all these citations written under it. I don't know, is that like 6, 7, 8? As you go through this document, first it tells you what the guiding principles are, but then as you move through it, towards the end of the document, they will actually take that same guiding principle, number 1, and then they give you the research highlights in bulleted form. So that's kind of a cool, handy dandy resource for you that you can pull out at a moment's notice if you need to have that research handy with regards to what we know about young English learners and their language development across their languages. So again, that's in the handouts folder for you. We won't go in depth on this document today, but we did want to make sure that you were aware of it. With that, I am going to be handing it back over to Jenny. You get it next.
Thanks, Tammy. Can we go to the next slide? Sorry.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to point out a little bit as to what we're going to talk about on the FAQ, how it relates specifically to our compliance checklist. We're not going to go in depth on that. If you didn't see that session, it is archived on the YouTube channel for ECPL about compliance. But so in relation to serving English learners, number 12 talks about the assessment tool and what you should have in the portfolio. If you have English learners, you should be collecting benchmarks for that domain in your applicable assessment tools. So that is for number 12. And then of course, depending on the TBE or TPI program you have, which we're going to go into in depth here later, that is how it's determined for number 15 on what qualifications your teacher is needing. And then 17 is related specifically to the home language survey. And 18 is related to the screening procedures to determine proficiency. And I believe Randy's going to talk a little bit about who the school code says that this relates to, and that will relate to whether it's applicable for your program on the compliance checklist. Next slide. I also want to mention that every time we do a session like this, there may be things that come up that you're like, oh, we're not doing this right. It's okay. It's okay if you're not doing it right. This is your time to ask questions about it and to make a plan for the future. Don't think that anyone's going to get their PFA or PFE funding taken away if you're not doing this correctly. We're here just for a continuous quality improvement session, and we just want you to really understand what is needed to serve English learners. So with that, Randy is going to start diving into our FAQ. We are going to have spots where we can stop and ask questions, so feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will get to them when we have a minute.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jenny. So as Tammy mentioned, we are going to be talking about the early childhood frequently asked questions, which was created, I believe it was created first back in March of 2023. And it was meant to be just a guide for administrators, teachers, and other stakeholders involved with early childhood English learners, developed by our multilingual department at ISB. We did just make some updates last month in September, so everything has the most up-to-date information on all the important rules and regulations for ELs in your early childhood setting. And everything inside of the FAQ is based on the 23 Illinois Administrative Code, Part 228, which basically drives everything for English learner education in the state of Illinois. So the first question in the FAQ states who's included under these rules. So all preschool programs with children from 3 to 5 that are administered by a public school district are included and need to adhere to Part 228 of the rule. So this includes any charter school, regional offices of education, or any programs that are subcontracted, regardless of the funding source. So all of these programs must follow the Part 228 rules. The second question is about how EL students are identified in preschool. So when a student registers for school, they are asked to fill out the home language survey. Whatever the responses are on that survey determines whether or not you are going to screen that child for EL services. So if the student answers either yes to either of those questions, then you are going to screen the child. If both of the responses is no, then you will not need to screen the student for EL services. And we also have available for you on our multilingual webpage at ISB, which is linked there for you on this slide. This is an example of the home language survey. The two questions: is a language other than English spoken in your home? And does your child speak a language other than English? Are required questions, and they cannot be altered. The other thing is that you must, whether your home language survey is either print version or digital, underneath the two questions, immediately you need to have the parent's signature and date. So like I said, these are available for you on our website. You can, zhuzh it up a little bit and put your school's logo or whatever on there, but there are also versions that are translated into all of those languages listed there. There's probably about 50 other languages, so please use that resource. You don't need to, go out and try to translate whatever languages you have when they're here for you. Okay, and Tammy's going to discuss the PDGB5.
Excellent. Thanks, Randy. All right, so just very quickly, we wanted to point out to you a couple of things. Let me back up 1 second and show you this because I had forgotten that we had this, that ISB did this really cool thing. So as Randy said, these are the 50 different languages that the ISB Home Language Survey is available in, and you just download them right off the web. You'll notice under where it says English, Arabic, and Spanish, there's a little, it says video, and then there's a little video icon. And that's because those links are live. You can click on them and they take you directly to these videos that we produced as part of the PDGB5 project last year. So what you're looking at on the screen right here is the final report from that project. And one of the essential practices that came out of this project and that we recommend is that all programs, including community-based organizations, implement the ISB Home Language Survey with all of their families at enrollment. In fact, we also strongly encourage you to show the Home Language Survey video to all of your families at enrollment. Distribute the Home Language Survey on paper at registration to the families. I would personally recommend one side English, one side in the other language, and then use those translations. Now, I know Randy mentioned that this can be done electronically. The reason why I am saying to do it on paper is that we found in this project, this PDG project, that a number of our programs that participated said they got more and better information when it was a sheet of paper handed to families than when it was just an electronic question, one more question on a screen for families to answer. So for that reason, I'm recommending to you to consider doing it on paper. And like I said, we used to do, two-sided sheet of paper, English on one side and the other language on the back. So that's certainly something that you can do. And I showed you where you can access them on ISB's website. In a little bit, I'll drop that link into the chat box for you so you can get directly to where the 50 translated pages are. But also, we have the whole library of videos that were produced as part of this project on ECPL's YouTube channel. So if you scan that QR code with your phone right now, it will take you directly to our YouTube channel, to the playlist that has all 6 videos. 3 of them are about the home language survey, 1 in English, 1 in Spanish, 1 in Arabic. Those are our top 3 languages in the state. And then there are 3 more videos. It's the same content. It's about the benefits of raising your children bilingually. And again, English, Spanish, and Arabic for those 3 videos. And we strongly encourage you to share those widely. They are free and available on demand for you. So I'll drop the link in the chat for you just a moment when I'm done talking. So with that, I think it's back to you, Randy.
Hey, Tammy, real quick, it's Laurel. There's a question in the chat that might be covered later, but a question about is there a specified time when the pre-IPT should be administered? If there's a yes on the home language survey. So I don't know if that'll be covered later, but if not, there is that question.
Okay,
Thanks, Laurel.
yes.
In fact, that is coming up next. So
Yep, we'll get to that one. Okay. So the next question is about how preschool children are screened, which this is, as you see the light bulb there, this is a little bit different than how we run this in a K-12 situation, because there aren't specific prescribed screeners by the state of Illinois that you must use to screen preschool students. You can establish your own screening procedures. They need to include screeners or established screeners or other screening procedures. They have to be research-based, and they should be used to determine the oral language, so only in the areas of speaking and listening. And then you need to also include the following things. Of course, they need to be age-appropriate, developmentally, culturally linguistic. You should include some observations, involve the family, use multiple measures. We do have on our website, this slide just shows a little bit more guidance that we have on the multilingual website about screening preschool children. And as you can see, there are at the bottom, there's a list of vendors that are commonly used in preschool programs like the pre-IPT. So you can also, this is linked on this page as well. So you can also go there if you need a little bit more information. The next question is about if students need to be rescreened. So if they start preschool and at age 3, do they need to be rescreened again when they turn 4? No, they do not need to be rescreened again. They should remain an English learner throughout their preschool years. You can screen them, use the screening measure again if you'd like to, just for to progress monitor or to decide whether or not you need to give more services, more time. But other than that, the students in preschool are screened again once they enter kindergarten. Do staff who administer the screener need to be certified? So this one is also different from K-12. In the K-12 world, you are required to be trained and certified to to administer the assessments. In preschool, it's a little bit different. For the most of you that are with a PFA or PFAE program, it is still required, so that is actually the same as a K-12. But if your program is not one of those, then it is recommended that you do the vendors training, but it is not required. And here we can stop if there are any questions.
Yeah, Randy, so did you answer that one? Is there a specified time that the pre-IPT should be administered after a yes on the home language survey?
I did not answer that, but I am going to get to that in another question.
Okay, so we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
There was also questions about whether there was online tutorials for how to administer the pre-IPT. Maybe you're going to get to that too.
I'm not going to talk about that, but there is, if you go on that vendor's website, they do have the training materials that are available. So you just have to, go on the website if you need to order the materials, and then there should be some links for training as well.
There's a couple questions about increasing family engagement for bilingual families and communicating with families. I think maybe we'll save those maybe towards the end since we're gonna have some other things. Let's see. If a child does not qualify for EL services with a pre-IPT, do they need to be screened again before entering kindergarten?
No, they are only screened upon their enrollment. If they don't qualify, then they just don't qualify during their preschool years, but they will be screened again when they enter kindergarten.
This says pre-IPT now has the IPT for ages 2.5 to 5.5. If we are preschool for all, can we use the IPT instead of the pre-IPT?
You can decide which screener you would like to use. Like I said, there's no prescribed required one, so you can definitely use that one if you would like to. I know some schools do like their preschool screening, like in the spring before preschool starts, and so the pre-IPT, which is 3 to 5, is not necessarily appropriate for someone who isn't 3 years old. So they might use the 2.5 to 5.5 age IPT.
Okay, and there's a couple more. Is there any guidance for a child who is nonverbal? If the parent identifies home language, parent that I don't know, I'm not sure what that says. If the parent identifies home language that qualifies for a screening, but the child is nonverbal, is a screening still required? Sorry, that one tripped me up.
Yes, and actually we have gotten that question a lot. If the child is nonverbal, unfortunately, you have to screen the child the same as you would try. I mean, you could use accommodations, but they do still have to be screened. Yes.
And does certification for pre-IPT need to be updated, or is it a one and done?
As far as I understand, there is no, we don't have a requirement for, like you need to recertify annually, like with the WIDA assessments. So I don't think the pre-IPT has changed very much in the way that you administer it or even in the, the content. So there is, as long as you have the training and you have that documented and you could provide that, then you're fine there.
Okay, and there's one other question. This relates to the preschool for all compliance checklist and the pre-IPT. It says, what determines if you have to collect data? It should be number 12 assessment in the area of ESL. Do you have to collect on anyone who you did the pre-IPT on? If they're considered, if they're determined to need bilingual services, and that's when we consider them to be English learners as far as number 12 on the assessment tool. Is that how you guys determine too, Randy, as far as, yeah.
Yes.
And is the pre-IPT training accessible through the website for teachers?
I am not 100% sure on there. I imagine that it should be, but
Yeah.
I can't say for sure.
Yeah, I would go check out that website.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think we can move on. We'll come
Okay.
back to all these. I don't want to get too, there's more questions coming in, but we can come back.
Okay, cool. Okay, so what kind of programs are offered for EL students in the preschool? So you have two options. You could have a transitional bilingual education program, and this program is required when there are 20 or more students in the preschool attendance center that have the same home language. And then your TBE would include instruction in both their home language and English. If you have less than 20 of the same language status, then that would be called a TPI program, which is Transitional Program of Instruction. This would be including ESL, of course, and you could also include native language supports as needed. Or you could go ahead and do, if you have the resources, you could go ahead and also do parts of bilingual program with both of those program types. The instructional designs inside of those programs, there's a few options as well. For TBE or TPI, you could have a self-contained classroom, transitional bilingual program, which is a self-contained classroom. Self-contained classroom means that all students in the class are English learners. you could use the dual language model, which there are two-way and one-way. One-way means, I'm sorry, two-way means that it is a mix of English learners and then also includes English speakers, native English speakers. And the goal would be bilingualism, biliteracy, and then those two groups would serve as a language model for each other. In one way, that means that they are all either English learners, they used to be English learners, or they are heritage learners, and they all speak the same language. And again, the goal is biliteracy, bilingualism, and academic success in both, the native language and in English. Or you could do a collaboration model, and this is where, the children are in a regular general education classroom, and the bilingual teacher comes and works with them, either like a push-in or a pull-out type of model. For TPI only, you could do a transitional program in English, which is also self-contained, which means, again, all the students are English learners. Maybe they all speak a different language, but they are English learners. Or you could do the collaboration model as well, where, again, they're in the gen ed class and they are either pulled out or work in small groups for their English language development instruction. For part-time TBE, for students to qualify for part-time, there are a few things that you could do. I've seen pre-IPT, they do have a Spanish proficiency, language proficiency test. So maybe the student has a different language in their home, but they have no idea, have never used that language, and English is their primary language. And their parent says, yes, we may speak Chinese, but our child has never learned Chinese. Then you could use that as documentation. If the student has an IEP, then you could use part-time instead of full-time. Or if the parents just refuse and they say they would prefer just, mostly English instruction, and they don't want, them to learn their native language as well as English. Should we stop for the questions about the program models first before we move on to question 10?
Yeah, sure. So I think you might have addressed the first part of that question regarding if the parent doesn't want the child to be enrolled, but if the 20 children who speak the same language are in different programs, PFA and PFAE, do we need to have a TBE class? So it's by site, right, Randy?
Yes, it's by the attendance center. So if there are 20 more in that, in that building, then you would have to establish the bilingual classroom, yes, or the bilingual program, I should say, not the classroom.
So going back to that first question, just to make sure I read that right, if a child has a language delay, which the screener and family feels is the cause for the child to not score a high enough level, does the child have to be considered ELL?
Like it says here, the parents can definitely, we didn't discuss this slide yet, but the parents can definitely refuse the services if they, whatever they feel is, best for their child. So they do have that option.
Great. And can we just address this one before we move on? When does the pre-IPT screening must be completed by? I think you mentioned that early on, but
Yep, I'm going to talk about this one right here on this
okay,
slide.
perfect.
But the other thing that I wanted to say too about if parents do refuse and they just say, I don't, I know that my child knows English well enough, and it's just a matter of, if there's a disability or whatever it is. If they like to refuse, the only thing is that they need to put that in writing and submit that to the district so they can keep that on file. The communication that is required with the parents when a student is identified, so they would do the home language survey, they would be screened, and the screening needs to occur within the first 30 days of school. So it's either, if it's the beginning of the year, it needs to occur in the first 30 days of school, or if, you have a child who enrolls in like November or, February or something, then it's 14 days after the enrollment in the program. So 30 days if it's the beginning, and then, later they want you to do a little more quick because they're, the kids are already going in school and they're already moved, they've, whatever. So you need to send a parent notification letter home to the parents explaining that the child was screened, explaining the program model, and their right to refuse the services if they choose. And that parent letter should be provided in English and the parent's home language. And on this next slide, I'm going to show you an example. Again, we have a bunch of already translated parent notification letters for you on our website. This is an example of how it looks. I always suggest that districts just go ahead and use the models on our website, because then you're sure that they include all the required information that the parents need to know. So this one, like I said, it includes everything that code 228 requires. And again, we have them translated in all of those native languages on the website as well. But you can see down here that it tells the parents, you have the right to visit the class, you have the right to refuse the service or withdraw your student, so that they would be aware of that whenever they were notified of the program placement. Okay, let's hear some. I see one
there's
question
quite a
that
few in
says,
there. Go ahead.
okay, go ahead.
Okay. Can you do the pre-IPT on a student more than once? Once for initial and once for data collection?
Absolutely, yes. So you can totally do that. Like I said, in the beginning, if you're just doing for, progress monitoring, or if you're seeing like, oh, maybe this student's developing their English really well, maybe I need to modify their services and spend less time with English language development. So yes, you can use those. It's just not, considered a screening measure at, after the first one. So.
This one is about the TPI. If you share a building with K-5, does the K-5 number count towards your 20 student count?
No, so preschool is considered a separate entity on its own. K-12 or K-5 or whatever the rest of your building is, they have separate numbers than the preschool. So
Does the school district need to use the exact language in the survey? In the home
the
language
home
survey?
language survey, the questions should not be
Yes.
altered. Yes. I mean, whatever there was a little blurb at the top about, this screening process is for whatever reason, just to let the parents be aware of the implication. But the two questions should not be altered. And like I said, you should have the parent signature and date right below those questions.
And that's something our early childhood assessment team will look at too, that the wording matches exactly.
Mm-hmm.
What if the parents say no to both questions, but you are aware that the family has another language spoken at home? The parents refuse to document another language is spoken.
Well, that is their right. So I have had a situation like that where I had a third grader. He was already in my program. Little sister enrolled in kindergarten, and mom put English. So I knew that they spoke a different language in their home. So I just called them and had a conversation with them. And she did decide to change her original home language survey. But if the parents don't want to, there's really nothing we can do about that. How they answer and what they provide is that's their right. So.
And this kind of goes along with that. If a parent refuses bilingual classroom, does the district need to provide ESL services in a blended early childhood classroom?
I'm not sure. So if the parent refuses
like a bilingual classroom, does the district still have to provide ESL services?
it's up to the parents. If the parents can refuse part of the services, all of the services, or so if they just say we don't want the bilingual service, we just want the ESL, then yes, the district does need to provide that instruction. However they work that in their program, whether it's collaboration, self-contained, whatever it is.
And one more screening question: can screening be done over the summer?
Yes, screening can be done over the summer. I think as far as like K-12, for example, we use the WIDA screener for kindergarten. And WIDA does suggest that you don't screen like earlier than April, like how they do like kindergarten roundup or preschool screening, those kind of things, because it's just too much time and you want to have like the most, where they are in that moment to make that decision. But yes, you can totally do it over the summer.
Great. All right, I think we're good to move on.
Okie dokie. Let's see, where is my, okay, there it is. So for certification for EL teachers who work with ELs in preschool, there's a bunch of different scenarios. So if you are providing bilingual instruction, and you are working in a PFA or PFAE program, you need to have the Pell with the early childhood endorsement and the bilingual education endorsement, or you can have the early childhood Pell and the educator license with stipulations for bilingual education. This is what we call ELS TBE. It is like a temporary bilingual certificate, which lasts for 5 years. In that time, it's expected that you are working on your bilingual endorsement during those 5 years. If you are providing English as a second language, again, you need the early childhood Pell. You could have either the bilingual endorsement or the ESL endorsement. Or again, the same thing, you can have the early childhood Pell with the ELS TBE. If you are not PFA or PFAE, you could provide the bilingual instruction with just the ELS TBE, which is that temporary license. That would be, that credential works, but not if you are a recipient of the PFAE grant. So as far as the program director, that could be really anybody in your district or in your program who has the qualifications. So you need to have either an administrative endorsement on your Pell or supervisory. You should have, if you have more than 200 kiddos in your preschool, then you need to have the ESL or the bilingual endorsement. If you have less than 200, then you need to make sure that you are completing 8 hours of professional development that's specific to English learners every year. So, if you are in a K-12 building, or pre-K-12, I should say, then, it might not necessarily be somebody who is part of the early childhood department. But if it's not, then you would have to work really closely with the director and whoever is providing the program for ESL or bilingual education. So these questions, 11, 13, and 15, the answer to all of these is no. Preschool students do not take annual assessments for their English language proficiency. It's not like our K-12 kids who take the WIDA assessments. They do not need to be assessed annually. Are all preschool teachers required to hold the bilingual or ESL endorsement? No, only if you are providing the services for bilingual or ESL. You could have, like I said, a regular gen ed classroom with the early childhood teacher, the bilingual endorsed teacher or the ESL endorsed teacher could work together, like I said, either push in or pull out sort of thing. And then the last question here, does preschool count towards your 3 years of TBE or TPI programming? And the answer to that right now is no. But there is, on this next slide here, there is some updated legislation regarding this 3-year rule, which doesn't specifically pertain to preschool because they weren't included to begin with, but just for your information, so you are aware. Beginning on January 1st in 2026, we will no longer be classifying our English learners based on the 1 to 3 years in the program versus 3 years. So you will not have to have separate enrollment letters or placement letters. You will not have to have separate letters when the students reclassify with proficiency. And this really, the change is so that the students can just stay in the program until they reach proficiency. They can get as much of the support that they need. And then when January 1st comes around, we will be updating all of those placement letters and exit letters for you on our website. Do we have some questions we want to stop for before we move on to this next one, Jenny, or are we good?
Sure, there were just two. How should it be documented for services when a parent has declined TBE but accepted TPI?
So in that case, if the parent comes to you and says, you know, we don't want TBE, we just want ESL instruction, all you have to tell them is that they need to put it in writing. They can, you know, dear whoever to whom it may concern or whatever, we would like our child to receive only ESL. We would not, you know, just a letter. It can be very informal as long as it could be an email, even if you print it, and we do accept electronic signature. So the parents, as long as they, you know, included their name, and then you just put that into the student's file with their, you know, with their screening information.
Great. And one more about the pre-IPT. Can the pre-IPT be used as a screening tool prior to a student being enrolled as a student, or to help determine if the student's low screening score is the result of a language barrier?
Low screening score, meaning they scored low because they speak a different language, or
I'm thinking that might have to do with the regular screening that they do, you know, for all students, and then possibly if they scored low on that. I don't know if that person wants to expand on that question.
Sorry, Jenny. It's
Yeah.
like, so if we get, let's say we have a student who we know is bilingual come through screening, and they have a low Brigance score that would potentially qualify them for a full case study. They are not yet enrolled in a program, but I mean, do we go ahead and put them through that case study because they scored low, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, because they get of the language barrier, maybe it's because, and we didn't know like before if they needed a translator during the screening or whatever. Like it just doesn't seem fair to put that kiddo through a full case evaluation if having a translator would have helped.
can you not rescreen the student if after you know that information?
It's a possibility. Yeah. I mean, depending on the timeline of when we screen them, you know what I mean? Like if it's late spring or whatever with the school district and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. I would say that if you are suspect that, you know, they need a translator, that you would rescreen them before you put them through the case study process.
Okay.
Okay, I think we
Okay.
can go on.
Okay, perfect. So the next question says, how does a child's EL status in preschool affect their placement in kindergarten? So essentially, it doesn't affect their placement in kindergarten because if those students answered yes on the HLS, it doesn't matter if they were already identified as an EL in preschool or not. They're still going to be rescreened in kindergarten so that you know, the school can determine whether or not they need English language services. So any student, regardless, they need to be rescreened. You cannot use the preschool screener to decide EL services for kindergarten. They must be rescreened with the kindergarten screener. We can move on from that from now. So for professional development for TBE and TPI programs, so you have to offer professional development to all of your ESL and bilingual staff. Every year there should be 2 activities. I believe on the FAQ they are listed what kind of topics, for example, research in bilingual ed, content area and language proficiency, or research-based teaching methods for English learners and for duly identified students, those being both English learners and in need of special education services. If you have new staff, they should have some sort of orientation that tells them about your program, you know, basic information like this is how many students we have, this is how our program works, that kind of thing. Should preschool staff be included in the training as far as Spanish language arts goes? So Spanish language arts is not required in the preschool at the preschool age. You can totally include your preschool people in the Spanish language arts PD because that can just, you know, help them to prepare the kids for what's coming. If if they go into kindergarten and they are receiving Spanish language arts instruction. For your EL/EBF funding, these are your TBE and TPI funding is included in that EL/EBF funding that's been since 2017. And it is based on the number of EL students that you have in the attendance center, and preschool students, yes, are included in that count. And of course, Title III funding is also available, and preschool students also count as for your Title III funding. And are there any more questions?
We don't have any more right now. Does anyone want to, I guess it looks like they can unmute, so it does, if anyone wants to ask a question.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions, we could hand it back to Tammy for the next part.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy. So I just dropped a link in the chat box for you. That takes you to this page that you see on the screen in front of you right now. So you'll see the actual URL is spelled out on the laptop, or you can use your phone or anything with a camera to scan that QR code, or click the link in the chat box. They will literally all take you to the exact same place, which is a website that looks just like this one on the laptop on the screen. This is the part of the Early Childhood Professional Learning website where we work that is dedicated specifically to preschool English learners. So we maintain on this website all sorts of great things for you. Just a sec, there we go. Which we, because we partner with a number of different organizations, what you'll find on that webpage are some of all of these things listed here. So live webinars, on-demand courses, live online administrator academy, downloadable resources, credentialing and scholarship information. So this is what we're pulling together from all the different organizations you see on the screen are all on this part of the ECPL website, so that you have kind of a one-stop shop to access all of this information. I did see there was a question somewhere along the line. I lost track of it in the chat box now, but it was asking about improving communication with parents or ways to communicate more with parents. I just wanted to highlight for you, if you go to, again, let me back up real quick. One more slide there, or you click on that link in the chat box, go to this webpage, you scroll down, and you'll, in fact, you see right here, it says live webinars. Right underneath that, you'll see, well, today's session, and then underneath that, it says engaging parents when you don't speak their home language or understand their culture. That session is happening later this month on October 27th. There's also a link for it in the email that you got for today's session too, underneath that handout link I told you about. If you keep reading, there's some red text. You'll find links there for that session, as well as the other ones that we'll be doing later on this year. So know that that is there for you as well. You can keep track of all of our free stuff going on. Okay, so
Tammy, can I stop for 1 second? There's a question that just came in. Vivian, I might need you to explain a little bit more on this. Is there a resource for 50/50 program compliance with ECRS 3? Not 100% sure what the 50/50 program compliance is in relation to.
Yeah, I just wonder if there were any pieces to the ECRS 3 that would require us to dissect the 50/50 dual program to be compliant, fully compliant. I know there's some questions on cultural responsiveness in ECRS, and but just wanted to make sure, there was nothing that I was missing on ECRS for a preschool program implementing a 50/50 program.
Not to my knowledge.
No, okay. Thank
And
you.
just to clarify, for those that may not be aware, 50/50 is into language allocation and dual language programming. So from the child's perspective, 50% of their day is in English, 50% of their day is in Spanish. So that's what that's in reference to, but that's specific to the dual language model, it's not really called out in ECRS, like I said. So
Thank
we
you.
were just talking about this morning, wasn't that 27 and like 31 that reference the cultural competence and linguistic competence stuff in ECRS? So if you're looking for it, it's around like 27 and
No,
31.
that's for the compliance checklist, Tammy.
Oh, yes, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, that was a different conversation this morning. Yep. Anyway, if you need to find it in the compliance checklist, you'll find it there. Awesome. Okay, cool. Did anything else pop up? Because I thought I saw something flash on my other screen. But
One just did now.
Okay.
Do most programs conduct screenings in the child's home language? We have several different languages. Randy, I think you just answered this for me the other day.
So I'm wondering if you're talking about the screening for, the English language proficiency or just the regular developmental screener that is, when you enter preschool. Okay,
Both, it
so
looks
for
like.
yeah, so for the preschool screening, you can, I think I would suggest if you want to get the best, information about what the child knows, then you should try to do it in the native language for those screenings. For the English language proficiency screener, that should be done only in English.
And then, Robin, do you want to unmute and explain this question a little more? Maybe I think she's talking about, it says if the pre-IPT shows that the child is not fluent, then would we need to collect data on that child in ELL? And those that were screened but are screening as fluent, then we don't collect data. So if this is related to number 12 on the compliance checklist, if they're determined to be an English learner, then you would have to collect the benchmark information for their portfolio. So you would follow what Randy was referring to before about how you determine if they're an English learner. I think that's all the questions. Oh, wait. Do any other schools get interpreters and they translate what the teacher says? Do any other schools get interpreters and do they translate what the teacher says for pre-K screening? I don't know. I think Pam might be asking other districts. So if you guys want to answer her in the chat, feel free. And then someone said, what if we do not reach 20 students in one language until later in the year?
So it has to be from like the 30 days from the beginning of the school year. So if it happens, during, like in February or something, then you would be looking to start your program in the next school year. But obviously you could be trying to get, resources in place. You could try to be hiring someone and, maybe you have a bilingual paraprofessional to come and give support to the kids. Just try to, get things rolling as soon as you can.
Thank you for everyone who's responding to Pam in there. All right, Tammy, now we could waterfall.
Yep, excellent. Okay, sorry. I just see more things popping up, making sure there's nothing for us. All right, so we're going to be wrapping up our session today. What we would like you to do, because this helps us plan for future sessions, is we'd like you to take a moment to type in the chat box what your biggest takeaway is from today. Maybe it was a big light bulb moment, something you learned, something that you were reminded of. And then we're going to give you a chance to type, and then we're going to hit go all at the same time so that we have a bit of a waterfall in the chat. So no pressure to type quickly or anything like that. But take your time, type your thoughts in there. What is your biggest takeaway from today? Again, to help us know. And then we've got, I think, just one or two more slides after that. So we'll give you just a moment. Go ahead and type, and then we'll hit go. I see a couple of people have already hit go. All right, well, okay, you can hit enter whatever you'd like and have your biggest takeaway. So learning about all the different English learner requirements and pre-IPT and things about PFA screening I'm seeing scroll through. The website is helpful, timing of the screening. So lots, great review for folks. Requirements around TBE and TPI are all some of the big takeaways, and that your district is doing great, Lynn, that's awesome to hear. Great review of the information and information about rescreening. transitional collaboration, pre-IPT, website, difference between the programming. A lot about pre-IPT seems to be scrolling through as I'm going through. So cool. Keep it coming. If you're still typing, don't worry. I know I'm one of those people that can't talk and type at the same time. So, if you're still typing, please do hit enter when you're done. I am going to click the next slide in the meantime.
Tammy, I did find a question within that waterfall. If I could, and Randy, I believe I know the answer to this, but just to confirm, it says we have tried to find a teacher who speaks Spanish, but have had no luck finding someone with the certifications. Does a certified paraprofessional count towards providing support in a student's native language? I believe the answer is no.
Correct. No, a paraprofessional cannot provide the services, the English learner services. But if that's all you can do right now, then that's what you can do. There's lots and lots of districts who are there's not a lot of bilingual teachers out there, but we've been suggesting go look into your community. Maybe there are people who speak that language who would want to try to get the ELS TBE or, yeah, but no, the paraprofessionals cannot be the only provider of the services. They can certainly support, but not the, the teacher of record.
Someone's asking a follow-up to that. What about substitute teachers who are certified to teach?
A substitute teacher who is a bilingual teacher who is also an early childhood teacher.
Yeah, I'm thinking if it's just a sub, that would not qualify.
No, it would have to be the teacher of record to provide the services.
Which would have to have the proper endorsements.
Right. So I think maybe what this person is asking if a sub, like somebody who used to be a teacher is being hired in a paraprofessional role, but they have the sub license maybe. I don't know if that's the question, but I have got that question before, and the answer is still no, because it's the role that they are assigned is a paraprofessional, not a teacher. So.
And there's a comment that someone didn't know that the para couldn't provide the services. We're speaking specifically to the bilingual services or ESL services. It does have to be the actual teacher or someone with a certification.
Yes. Para cannot, they need to be certified with the early childhood Pell, all the endorsements that are required. Unless, like I said, if you are not a PFAE recipient, then you can have the ELS TBE. But that's just a 5-year temporary license. So.
All right. So with that, we're going to have this screen up here for you now. It talks about how to connect with us at ECPL. You probably are on our email list already by the very nature of the fact that you're here today. You signed up for this session. But if you haven't done so yet, please do check out our YouTube channel, Facebook, and Instagram as well. You can see all of that information there. And with that, we just wanted to say thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are ending a little bit early, but we're happy to give you back a little bit of your day.